Hello, everyone. I'm Wesley. Thanks for joining me today. Today, I wanted to talk about why I think every photographer should start practicing street photography right now. So let's get it.
Let's go.
Street photography is a unique genre of photography. It has a broad definition, it can be performed at all times of the day and with every type of weather. You also don't have to travel far in order to do it. And I really think the skills you hone out on the streets translate into many other genres of photography. So let's get into why I think you should get out on the streets with your camera as soon as possible and get to practicing. Starting off with reason number one, you have to make quick adjustments to your camera. Street photography is a very fast paced environment that forces you to adapt quickly. You'll learn how to adjust your camera settings on the fly, from ISO to aperture to shutter speed. In order to do all of these things, you're forced to learn how to use your camera very well. There are times that you'll have no choice but to dive into manual mode to get the look that you want. If it's a high dynamic scene and your matrix metering is trying to meter, for example, for the whole scene, but you want more of a silhouette or high shadows, you're going to have to go into manual mode to make those things happen. So you're going to be forced to learn it quickly. Or maybe say you want to slow your shutter way down and introduce motion into your shot, or speed your shutter up to freeze motion. These are all things you have to do on the streets to obtain the shot or the composition you're looking for. And those skills will help you in many other genres of photography as you learn to use your camera and make those adjustments quickly to keep things rolling. So, this hands on experience will make you more confident and skilled as a photographer, and these skills would transfer into many paying gigs like weddings, portraits, or even sports, so that you don't miss a fleeting moment, especially weddings and sports. Let's go to reason number two. It helps you learn the exposure triangle better. When I first started street photography, I shot aperture priority for the most part. I quickly learned that in order to get the shot that I really wanted, I had to make further adjustments to the camera. And that led me to learn how to use exposure compensation and eventually diving into full manual mode to make those adjustments I wanted. I'm talking way back though. It's been a while since I've had to do those type of things because it pretty much comes native to me these days. And in working with high dynamic lights in tall buildings and the lights cutting down the streets and alleyways, you have to expose properly for the light to ensure that your subject's not blown out. Most cameras don't have highlight weighted metering like, Leicas or Nikons, for example. So manual mode is really the fastest way to get the shot you want, because matrix metering, like I just said, often leaves the highlights blown out when trying to expose evenly for the dark and the light areas. So you can dive into like spot metering and other things, and those will help your camera meter properly. But manual mode's the easiest way. And in learning manual mode, you'll start to pick up what aperture f4 and a shutter speed of 1/500 look on a bright day, for example, where there's no shade. You'll learn to understand the relationship between shutter speed, your aperture, and your ISO, and you'll learn to make those adjustments without even looking at the camera so that your camera is mostly set up when you pull it up to your eye. When I moved back into film photography earlier this year, knowing the exposure triangle helped me really dial in the settings and get my even exposures on some of my film shots as well. So learning the exposure triangle will help you make those quick adjustments so that you can get the shot you need and never miss those moments. Number three, developing better composition with ever-changing subjects and backgrounds for that matter. With street photography, every street looks different, and the people on those streets are always in motion or doing something, and your composition is constantly changing. Street photography is the perfect place to really learn how to compose. You can use different things like leading lines to frame your subject or blocking as well. And since your backgrounds are always changing, there are endless possibilities to work with. You have many more opportunities to practice your compositions on the streets than any other genre of photography. And that, again, will only serve to help you when it matters the most. Let's move on to number four. You have to think quick. Many times you will see a great composition only to have to pull your camera up to compose, make the adjustments, and shoot. Well, that's the hope, at least. As I just mentioned, you're working with an ever changing environment, and because of this, you will miss the shot if you're not quick on your feet. And it takes learning your camera and better developing compositions, as well as knowing how to expose properly to be quick on your feet. Eventually, once you learn all of these things, you'll see these compositions 3, 4, 5 steps ahead than you'd previously seen. In combination with the skills you've sharpened and you've honed on the streets, they'll all help you get the shot when previously it would have passed you by. There were many times where I was on the streets and I saw light hitting perfectly as the subject was walking through it. And I would have missed that shot had I not had my camera preset and had I not been ready to react. So that applies to something like weddings or sports as well. You have to be ready to react, and you have to have your camera set properly, and you have to be quick on your feet. So it all comes into play, and the streets help you hone these skills. All right, let's move on to the last one, number 5. And it's the easiest one. You can pretty much do it anywhere. I alluded to this in the beginning, but street photography can be done in any town, big or small. And the more limited you are, the smaller the town, the more creative you have to be to get a good composition. This allows you to practice photography anytime. Any genre of photography can be benefited from practice. The more you do, the better you're going to get. And there's no doubt about it that street photography can be done in more places, at more times of the day, and in any kind of weather. So why not use it to grow your skill set? All right, now that we've talked about my 5 reasons why I think street photography can help you grow in other genres of photography, now let's talk about what genres these newly acquired skills translate to, starting with what I first used them for in weddings. Wedding photography is documenting a wedding. Street photography is documenting everyday life. If anything translates, street photography translates to weddings. Changing subjects, thinking quickly, changing light, they have so much in common, and getting out there on the streets will help you get better so you can step up your wedding game. That is literally what I did. I honed my skills on the streets and I went into wedding photography, and it made it so much easier to get into the wedding business. All right, let's move on to travel photography, which I think is another one that translates well. All travel photography is street photography in another location. I mean, yeah, you can go to a park or the mountains when you're on vacation too. I get it. But we'll get into landscape photography next. Street photography allows you to do the same type of photography as you often do in your own town while you're on vacation. So if you're practicing street photography, you're going to have the skills to get the shot you would have wished you had gotten had you not practiced. Travel is a huge passion of mine. Check out my travel vlogs on the channel as well. I went to Ireland, Italy, Amsterdam this year, and I'm currently looking for somewhere in December to go. We'll see. Let me move quickly on to landscape and nature photography. I'll admit this is not a huge passion of mine. As a veteran of the United States military, I have professionally camped for years, so I really don't care to get out in the middle of nowhere these days. I've done it too many times. So that being said, I can dabble in landscape photography here and there, but really and truly, it's just a slower paced street photography with a different subject, if you think about it. And you have to have a lot of patience in landscape photography, and street photography is no different. There's a lot of times where I get to a composition that I like, or good light hits in a certain way with a certain background, and I have to wait for an interesting subject to walk through it. And with landscape photography, you're not waiting for an interesting subject, but you are waiting for golden hour or the sunset or the lighting to hit just perfectly. So you have to practice patience on the streets, and you have to practice using your camera. And landscape photography, it certainly could be benefited from more practice. All right, last one I wanted to talk about is portraits. It's probably the least connected to street photography. However, If there's one place where you have to know light, exposure, and how to use your camera, it's portraits. If you're shooting outdoors, which I've often done for family portraits, you have to understand light and even exposure and make quick adjustments. As the light fades, especially during golden hour, it fades pretty quickly, and you have to make those quick adjustments out there to your camera to make sure you're constantly evenly exposing your subject. All right, but indoors, you got to dial in your camera settings to things like changing the view mode so that you can still see your subject in a dark environment if you're using a flash, through the EVF. And I remember doing my first model shoot actually, where I actually struggled to try to find that mode, and it made it very difficult for me to get started with the shoot, and it was kind of frustrating. Not anymore though, because I know my camera body and I know it well. And knowing your camera and knowing how to make these quick adjustments still translate into something like indoor model or portrait photography as well. I mean, there's no doubt that I love street photography, but even if it's not your preferred genre, it can certainly help to strengthen your skills so that you can be ready for the next gig. So if I were you, and I'm not, but if I were you, I'd get on the street and start practicing. Why not? We're talking about practice. Practice? Okay, I can't do it. Anyway, all right, guys, that's it for this quick one. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos. I'll see you later. Peace. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's recording. All right, now we got it. Now I am ready to go. Got my mic recording, got my mic turned up, got my lights on, got my camera recording. We are ready to go. Okay, let me stop. Am I doing everything right? I don't know. That's uneven? Okay, good. All right. All right, let's get started.